Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host Richard Swan, and in today's show we have someone else who are going to share their wisdom, their experience, their knowledge, their ups and downs of this crazy train of the property world, to help you, to give value to you, to share some tips and tricks and a lot of the things that they've had to go through in their own journey, their own path. And this gentleman, he's from the other side of the ocean. Oh my goodness. This is a man who just before the show been chatting about the cold of Canada, the heat of Florida and everything in between. No doubt we'll get to that and the fabulous lifestyle that he has. But property or real estate, as he likes to call it over there, property is property is property, and he has learned a ton of stuff. A mentor, a trainer, a person who gives so much value, helps so many people to gain from his knowledge, his experience. It is the man himself, Mr. Van Sturgeon. Hello, Van. It's great to have you on the show, sir.
Well, thank you, Richard, for having what an amazing introduction. I don't know who that person is that you kept glowingly talking about, but I appreciate the introduction and thank you. I've been a long admirer of your podcast and I listened to many of your episodes. So it's a treat and a real pleasure to be on your podcast. So I fire away. I'd love to be able to engage in conversation about property.
Yes, that's a property. Yes, real estate property. It's quite funny. There's a lot of different buzzwords that we share, that's for sure. And I want to tap into that knowledge, things that you can share with our fellow investors out there on their own journey. And no doubt we'll chat about the market. And I think there's something to do with some kind of global pandemic on the go as well. That may have had an impact or two on business. No doubt we'll get into that. But sure. Tell me, your own journey. You were explaining just before we started recording there that there's a contracting side or the building side of the business that you had a lot of experience in, and that kind of tipped over and you started to co-manage that into the investor bracket of the world. How did that come about for you? How did the whole seeds of your journey begin?
Well, how I got started was I'm a product, and I'm kind of going to date myself, Richard, but I'm a product of the late 60s, early 70s. And growing up in Chicago, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with my father and mother and younger brother. Right. And ultimately, the whole idea was to save up. My parents wanted to save up a bunch of money to be able to buy their first home, right. And that's the American dream in Chicago. So, as they were about to doing that, working their little tails off and trying to get as much money as they could, they found out that the apartment building that was went up for sale that we were renting from. And so that's sort of, they transition out of that into actually putting the down payment necessary, and they became landlords. They actually purchased the building. And that happened in the late 70s. And just right around that cusp of when they purchased it, things started to deteriorate quite dramatically in terms of the economy. You're too young to remember, Richard, but back then interest rates were at 18, 20 some odd percent. Inflation rate was crazy. You had the oil embargo. I remember with the old man sitting in line waiting for gas to be, to put gas in the car. Yeah. And so during that period of time, the economy fell off a precipice, and it was pretty difficult. And this building that we just took over that had 100% occupancy over a course of a year or two, especially in the early 80s, it was we were down to like only 40 to 50% occupancy. Right. So as a family, we had to figure it out very quickly. And that whole figuring out process was we actually did everything ourselves. Mm-hmm. So they came from painting to doing roof work, cleaning toilets, whatever it took to survive, we did it. And ultimately, we were able to get through that whole period of time, and the economy started to get better, and the area started to get, where we're living also started being positive instead of being negative. And then ultimately, we were able to get out of that. So fast forward, and I went off to university, and after school, as every parent wants their child to be, dressed in a suit and tie and maybe be a lawyer, a doctor, something like that. I had that opportunity as well, and to become a lawyer. I got accepted to several law schools, but I ultimately had a very difficult conversation with my parents, and I told them my heart wasn't in it. I really wanted to get into real estate, in particular general contracting at the time, because I had this massive background in doing the things around around our property. Right. And so I embarked on, they were begrudgingly, what can they do? They said, okay, if that's what you want, then we'll support you. And And that's what I got started in. So I started my general contracting business in Chicago. That was in the early 90s. And thankfully, it was a period of time when the real estate market was good and it was progressing well in that area. But I kept running into the same people that would be pricing out this work. So I was growing my general contracting business, but I kept running into the same cats, these real estate investors who would buy properties, renovate them, then sell them, or buy properties and hold on to them and create a portfolio. And it's at that time I then realized that, hey, maybe this is something that I should give it a try. And so that's where, in conjunction with my general contracting business, I started dabbling in real estate, first into buying and flipping, and then ultimately into a portfolio of properties. So I not because I planned all this out, but it just so happened things just progressed from general contractor to I got into land development, where there was opportunities where I could subdivide and build homes. And then from there, when I started accumulating a portfolio of properties, it made logical sense for me to start a company in property management. So I would look after my portfolio, but also at the same time, then these relationships that I had with other real estate investors who had their own portfolio of properties, but didn't have enough mass in order to do their own property management. I would solicit them, or they would come to me, and then I would manage their properties as well. So it was just one thing led to another, and that's how things progressed. So,
brilliant. I love the way the journey just unfolds in front of you, because obviously you made your decision at that point, that fork in the road of law, whole contractor, and thinking, no, I feel, I don't know what it is, I don't know how big this will go, but I feel I want to lean towards this side. I've got a feeling, I've got a thing within me, and the law thing, it doesn't float my boat. It's not for me. And you've taken that turn, and as soon as you did, and you poured your heart and soul into it, everything's just unfolded every step of the way since then. It's fantastic. Right.
Well, Richard, it wasn't, it was, like I said before, I never planned all of this out.
Yeah.
I had goals like everybody who has goals. And it got to the, as I was progressing, I started to burn the candle at both ends, in that I was developing this general contracting business as well as this real estate investing portfolio mumbo jumbo thing. And as these things were growing, I got to the point where I was, I didn't understand how to deal with the growth. And there were moments where I would take on more than I can chew. And I felt, so I remember once, there was one particular home that I was flipping, and I ended up having to sleep at the job site. And I was just newly married, and I didn't even go on my honeymoon. I was so focused on my business that this particular property, I was sleeping there just to get it completed, because money's tight, and if you're borrowing money at significant interest rates, you got to get things done quickly. So I remember waking up in the middle of the night and staring at this freshly painted ceiling, realizing that I couldn't go back to sleep. All these things, the problems associated with this property was racing through my head, and I couldn't go back to sleep. Worrying about the contractor who didn't show up, worrying about the contractor who's looking for money before he completed his work. Kitchen manufacturer is supposed to provide cabinetry, didn't show up, or is going to be delayed. And all these things came racing through my head. And I got to a point where I almost had a nervous breakdown, and I had to figure it out. It was extremely difficult, but thankfully I had, I got to meet those successful real estate investors in Chicago, and one of them was a sort of like a coach. And then I went out and I reached out to them, and I said, "Hey, this is my problem. Can you help me?" And thankfully, I paid him a lot of money, but thankfully he brought me under his wing, and he showed me the ropes. He showed me what it was to create a successful portfolio. And one of the difficulties I had was the mindset that I had, because I came from a background where I had to do everything myself, because it was just a matter of survival.
Yeah.
But you got to release, and sometimes you got to take a step back and accept 80% and just move the ball forward, and not work in the business, but work on the business. And so it was the best investment I ever made, and it put me on the track of where I am today. And I've continually spent money, thousands and thousands of dollars on mentorship, coaching, books, seminars, to be able to get me to be where I am today by by learning things from other people. I akin it to trying to learn a musical instrument. If you want to learn to play guitar, sure, you can grab that thing and strum it for a couple of years and you might figure something out. You make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But if you hire a music teacher, a guitar instructor, and they're standing right beside you as you're trying to learn that instrument, if you make a mistake, they slap you upside the head to correct you. Yeah. Those are the types of things that are invaluable and will expedite quickly the process of you learning how to play the guitar. So I'm a real advocate on people, if they really want to get serious on something, to go reach out to people who know what they're doing. And you might have to pay some money, but ultimately they'll take you to point A to point Z a lot quicker by doing that approach than trying to figure it out on your own, especially in real estate when you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, it's big rewards, but it's also big risks, as those things. And those things, I love the fact you shared that so openly and so transparently. You put it out on the table. Like, I did this and I sacrificed my honeymoon and I was, I couldn't get to sleep at night and so on and so forth. That's brilliant for other people to hear and to understand so they don't feel alone. Have you seen those pain points elsewhere? Do you see that in a lot of people, a lot of landlords with all the worries inside their heads about how to keep things going with their portfolio, or people who are trying to manage their own projects, but they've got 1,001 things inside their head? Or I need to phone about the kitchen, or I need to chase up those materials, so on and so forth. Is this something, it's not just you, it's elsewhere, you're seeing it in a lot of people?
Absolutely. Whether you are a new real estate investor who wants to get in on to purchase your first investment property, or somebody who's seasoned, who's got a portfolio of properties, and I mean, there's headaches. There's headaches. There's always headaches. But it's a matter of the mindset that you have and being able to overcome them. And sometimes it requires effort. Sometimes it's a change of view. Yeah. Like we oftentimes, like I say that. When, the first time that we jump in a car when we were 16, 18 years old, and the apprehension and so many different things that are involved in actually driving a vehicle is overwhelming at the time. And if you can recall the time when you stepped in and you sit down and you turn the engine on, it's overwhelming. Yeah. And then fast forward 2, 3, 5 years later, it's like second nature to you. But think about how many things that we have to figure out in the process of driving that vehicle from one place to another place. Yeah. And so we have to have what I really find is mindset is so important in when we come across difficulties, and just changing that mindset and finding those individuals that can help you in that process. Again, mentorship, coaching. I always suggest to people to hang around with like-minded individuals. It's amazing what you can learn and the support that you receive. So I know in your neck of the woods, you have these real estate investment associations. I encourage people who really want to get into real estate investing, property, purchases, and all that good stuff, that they should join those types of organizations, where meetup groups, stuff like that, where they have like-minded people there. And I find that those types of groups are very supportive of one another. I am I enjoy listening and helping people, getting into the business, and they want to know certain things. And I love sharing information, because I remember how it was over 30 years ago when I got started. It was not easy.
No, exactly. I totally endorse everything you're saying there. And you're right, because if we don't reach out, if we don't learn from others, if we don't help others as well along in their journey, this whole property game, this real estate game, can be a really lonely business. You're stuck in your own head, you're stuck in your own plan, you're stuck in your own projects, and everything's on your shoulders. You're carrying everything, and it can be a lonely time.
Well, absolutely. And also, one of the things that I advocate for people who get into the property investment thing is that you got to create yourself a power team. You got to create yourself a group of people that you that you bring into the fold, and you exchange information, and it's a win-win situation in every single relationship you create. So those are the types of things that I encourage people to do. And podcasts like what you have over here is a tremendous asset. And I encourage everybody to listen to every single show, because there's these nuggets of information. Hopefully you might find one or two through this interaction, you and I today. Yeah, exactly. That people might be listening in and say, "Whoa, that's an idea there that they can take in," and it's powerful. It's powerful. But you got to get out there. You got to read books. You got to do all that kind of stuff. But nothing beats meeting people and that are successful, that have been there already, to get as much information as you can out of them.
Fantastic. I love it. Now, you covered a few snippets earlier about the fact that you've seen the portfolio side of things as a landlord. You've had so many flips and projects that you've done as well, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. You've also done the land acquisition, so on and so forth. Have you found there's particular areas or area that you personally really, really like and really gravitate to? What's the kind of things that light you up the most?
There's different types of investors out there. And also I have a variety of things that I do. So I have single family homes, and then I have multifamily, apartment buildings, commercial plazas, things of that nature. Yeah. But also at the same time, there are opportunities where I do anywhere between 100 to 300 transactions in a year. So sometimes I cull the portfolio, and I leave there's a time horizon for every investment. So I go through that process, and ultimately I dabble in a number of different opportunities. And what I encourage people is to really fine tune the areas that they're interested in focusing on, learn that area inside and out, create the relationships within those areas of people that are in those areas. For example, if you got salespeople, accountants, lawyers, things, people that are in that group on the real estate side that you can tap into and create those relationships, I would encourage you to do so. And then again, these groups, these real estate investment groups, are also very important. And that way you're able to start working toward figuring out a process of what it is that you want to accomplish, and really zero in on certain goals, and be specific in the goals that you want to aim for. So in my particular situation right now, I'm focused on properties that are producing cash flow. There are individuals out there, and I can't say they're right or wrong, that chase after appreciation. So there have been dramatic appreciations in certain parts of North America, like where in Canada, up in Toronto, it has been crazy, the amount of appreciation of value, like land. So you're purchasing, not land, I'm sorry, but property. So there are individuals that are purchasing property, income property, where if you do the arithmetic based on your financing and expenses, they are actually pulling money out of their pocket every month to make things even out. Zero.
Wow. So it's an actual negative cash flow situation. Wow.
Negative. And but that's not the only place. You could go to places in San Francisco and Miami. There's pockets where it is crazy, the amount of money that the rental income just doesn't justify. Yeah. But those are the same areas that have appreciated dramatically in value. Sure. And so in 5 years' time, if you're able to hold on, you're seeing dramatic appreciation of value. And I've suffered for that. I know, to give you a quick example, in 2001, I had purchased an apartment building in Toronto for 4.7 million Canadian dollars.
Right.
6 years later, after doing some raising the rents, doing the renovations inside the place, rehabbing it, I was able to sell it for 7.5 million.
Right.
In 2007, that's a dramatic jump in value, almost $3 million. So that was really great. But fast forward to today, that same building that I sold for $7.5 million in 2007, now in 2021 is worth probably around 22 million. Right. Does it give you a perspective?
Exactly.
And you're not going to get that kind of appreciation in very many parts of the world. And so if you could just hold on to a property like that, you're going to do. But nobody's got a crystal ball, Richard. Nobody can forecast. So I like sleeping well at night. So I'm that person who likes cash flow. Yes. So after I do all my arithmetic, I'm a simpleton. I just grab a pad, a pen and paper, right, like this. I do how much income it produces, the expenses, and all that good stuff, and it comes out to X amount of dollars per month. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy, and that's the kind of real estate investor I am.
No, totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean the kind of long-term aspect of appreciation. Yeah, of course, we've got a lot of history on that one, but you're right. It's a crystal ball thing. You don't know exactly when the sweet spots are going to be, so it's a long-term gamble, and you need to survive that journey if you're going to behave that way. Whereas if you pull it more short term, if you look at the numbers month by month by month, this is what I need to do to keep this thing going. That's perfect. Because then if you do wait 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15, whatever it is, then the appreciation will come afterwards. But you've survived. You've bought yourself, as you know, Mr. Kiyosaki would call it, a real income producing asset. You've got that asset and it's working for you. You're not having to, you know, pay it, if you like, which is, I definitely agree with you. It's the way to go from a simple investor point of view. Totally. Fantastic.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, all properties will appreciate in value. Very, very rarely do you come across an area where just, you know, jobs are disappearing, the economy is horrible, people are leaving, all that stuff is negative. Yeah. And as a result, maybe you're not going to see any property appreciation, but they're very few and far between. You're always going to see some appreciation. Yeah. And I just love to be able to wake up on the first of every month, and then there's a rent check there for that particular property, that property. And again, there's people who don't, you know, will chase after appreciation. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I know I like sleeping well at night.
Yes, I quite like sleeping well. I definitely agree with that principle. Now, crystal ball. I mean, my goodness, if last year didn't prove to you that no one has crystal balls, coronavirus. Oh my goodness, how have you found things in your own business world, your investment world, so on and so forth? What's been your experience?
Well, I'll tell you, like I never would have believed that we would have seen what we have seen in the matter of how things have just jumped up in value, a lack of supply. And I think that's a function of the restrictions that governments all across the world have put into place, these moratoriums on being able to evict people. And if you can't pay your mortgage or financing, then, you know, we'll give you we'll keep tacking it on to the back end of the money you owe. So all those types of things we don't know. Nobody knows. And if anybody were to put their hand up in the air and say that they're going to know what's going to happen over the next 6 months to 18 months, they're lying to you. It's like, so unfortunately, I'm not as active as I would like to be in purchasing or selling or because of it's just the lack of supply out there.
Yeah.
Also now has become, you know, I focus on adding value on the properties I acquire. And which requires rehabbing, requires renovations. And so when costs have just dramatically gone up on commodities, it's kind of throws the numbers off. And again, that when you're doing arithmetic, when you're chasing, I don't chase after property. So if I find an opportunity, great. If I don't, that's okay too. I'm happy with what I have. I'm very blessed in what I have, but I don't chase. One of the things I encourage people listening to your podcast is that don't just resort to your local, you know, little computer thingamajig where millions of properties are listed for sale and think that you're going to comb through those listings and find something that is going to be, you know, investor ready or investor like for the property investor, it's something that they're going to find there because millions of people are going through that. What I encourage people is to take that extra step and to create relationships within the areas that they want to purchase property, and actually network and see what's out there. You know, when you're getting to older established communities, you'd be amazed anywhere. You know, a couple of doors down, across the street, a couple of blocks away, there's somebody that is you know, got credit card payments that aren't able to make. They lost their job, or you know, properties in disrepair, and they need to get out, or you know, they're embarrassed to put their sign up for sale on their property, and they need to get out. And so reaching out to those, finding those nuggets, doing the hard work yourself is an opportunity perhaps to be able to find properties that are off market that you can save a lot of money because you're helping those individuals out, but also at the same time, you're finding properties that are, you know, below market in terms of value.
Exactly.
Does that make any sense?
No, totally agree with that. And yet again, you know, it's tacking back to what you started with. Get yourselves out there, connect, get your message out there, speak with people, network, connect, local agents, so on and so forth, because it's only by doing that that you're then actually going to find more of these great opportunities that will be out there.
Well, Richard, I'll tell you, like I don't, every morning when I wake up early in the morning, I go to my email box and there's inevitably some type of something that's been sent over my way to take a look at based on the relationships that I've created in the areas that I invest in. So I know wholesalers and I know agents and I know a bunch of people in that area, and they know me because I'm a serious buyer. And so there are oftentimes real estate agents who will get a listing and or will look to be able to slide that listing quickly to somebody who can buy it quickly, and they don't have to split their commission. Right. There are also other opportunities that, that come across, and this one hand washes the other. And I don't go to the computer to look at listings. These opportunities present themselves. Unfortunately, because of this pandemic and they're not as plentiful as they once were. But nevertheless, I still get opportunities. And if you're not getting those opportunities, what I'm strongly encouraging people is to do their homework and go out there and network, like you said, Richard. Press the flesh, get to meet people. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you broaden your horizons and you do the work and you reach out to people. That opportunities will come. There's always opportunities every single day. Every single day, there's opportunities.
Totally agree with that. Now, Van, one of the areas you've helped so many people over the years, which is just fantastic. You've got your own courses and things online. People, whenever it's safe to do so, go into the show notes. You'll see all the links over to Van's profiles, website, social media, etc. But one of the kind of key areas is, and it's because of your contracting background, is that knowledge of, I know how to buy right. I know how to assess something quickly. I know how to save money. I know, all these challenges that people have. What are the key areas that you're finding that people are maybe tripping up on, or they should really spend more time focusing on to get those numbers right?
Just in general, what I encourage people is that you gotta get out of your comfort zone. And you got to get out there, and you got to push yourself forward. It's not easy, but you got to get out there, and you got to start looking at things in a different perspective, and you got to start connecting with people to try to push the ball forward, to try to get to the point where you actually are able to to put an offer in and actually get an opportunity to purchase a property. There's a lot of things that first-time property investors come across in difficulties. There's a lot of things. There's issues of evaluating a property, which should be mitigated by the fact that you've done extensive research in the area. You've created relationships with individuals that can give you an overall idea of what the value of a property is. That is number one. Number two is that when you get to the position where you're able to acquire a deal, that you need to be able to get in there and quickly and be able to do an assessment of what the property needs. And because we're not in the business of buying Cadillacs and Rolls Royces. We're in the business of buying diamonds in the rough, ugly ducklings, where we got to sprinkle some money, a little hard work to be able to raise a value. And that's the other thing I'm going to touch on, is that the ironic part in this whole business is that you purchase a property at this value. And then in order to increase the value, you have to decrease it by actually ripping it apart, by replacing the kitchen, the bathroom, the floors, or painting, whatever you need to do. You're actually decreasing the value. So if you really were to start that and brought in an appraiser to say, how much is the value of this property? Well, it's going to be less than what you purchased it, because you've and so a lot of that, and the thousands of dollars that are associated with that, really, can be quite troublesome for people. And that's why I encourage, if you are serious about getting into becoming a real estate investor, a property investor, and we all know that 90% of the people out there who are multi-millionaires are based out of real estate. It's the surefire way to become a multimillionaire, to create that passive income, to create financial freedom. So if you get to that point and where you want to make a real step forward, then you need to make the investment in yourself. The investment in yourself is, before you invest in a property, invest in yourself. And that requires time, and a dedicated time to be able to identify those areas that you want to invest in, but also in perhaps, what I strongly encourage people is to find individuals that are like-minded, that have already been there, done that, can show you their successes. And perhaps maybe you reach out to them, and if you have to pay, but those individuals who are able to grab you by the hand and walk you through and navigate you through the stormy waters associated with property investment. We've all heard of the horror stories associated with property investment.
Yeah.
Buying the wrong property at such a high inflated price, especially nowadays,
Yeah.
or buying a property where you think it's going to cost you X amount of dollars, and all of a sudden realize that it's going to cost you much more to rehab, renovate it.
Mhm.
So, these mistakes can be devastating. It can knock you out. We're talking how long is it going to take people to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in their life, like over a course of a year, and then squandering that over several months on something on a renovation on a property, that could be pretty troublesome. So those are the things that you got to start investing in yourself before you start investing in properties. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right, all these key aspects, your mindset, yourself, investing yourself first, getting yourself out there, connecting, networking, lifelong learners. It's all principles we definitely agree with and we share, that's for sure. As well as that key point of buying the asset to begin with, getting it at the right price and stuff. The actual construction phase, the refurb, the renovation, whatever you want to call it, the rehab, as you like to call it, that's an area that people can lose a fortune on, because they take their eye off the prize. They're like, oh, well, it's done. I've bought it. That's fine. I'll start looking elsewhere. And all of a sudden, they're throwing money away left, right, and centre. Is there a certain ethos or a principle you would instill in people to get them to focus, to get them to manage a project properly?
Well, there's a series of steps. Like my background is being a general contractor.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty successful at it. And I've done thousands of renovations, from apartments to houses to commercial apartment buildings, you name it. I've done that.
Yeah.
And so there's a guiding principle associated with carrying out planning and execution of a renovation. Mm-hmm. And those are the types of things that I teach people to be able to make sure that they save, to eliminate the need for a general contractor, but also at the same time, save 30, 50% on a total project based on, being able to plan and manage it successfully. Right. So one of the things that we immediately start is setting goals and what it is that we want to accomplish with the property. And then we move on to identifying the things that are critical that are needed to be done on the property to get you to that goal. Oftentimes, I find a lot of individuals will go through the process of doing some substantial work on a property when it really isn't necessary. Right. Sometimes, like, you're spending money for no reason. Yeah. My mom always taught me that you always should leave a little bit of money on the table. Hmm. And there are people going out there thinking that they're going to spend this kind of, X amount of dollars and get maximum amount of money when they turn around and sell the property. Yeah. Now, notwithstanding what's happening right now, where it's crazy. It's a real estate market. When it comes back to normal, and it will, mm-hmm. You're going to have to figure out strategically, let's say the going rate for a particular area, and just tossing a number, is 100,000 mm-hmm. or 500,000. Well, setting a mark of a property where you profit from it, if you're doing a flip, of course, mm-hmm. Setting it at 85, 90,000 or 480,000 on a $500,000 kind of market value, is the best way to go, because I find time and efficiency in trying to move a product is a lot more beneficial to me than trying to maximize the amount of money that I can get out of it. We all want to get top dollar, but there's no such thing. Everybody wants a deal, Richard. Everybody wants a deal. So you got to strategically do it that way. You got to place that value. You got to place the property slightly below market to be able to move the product. Right. So what does that mean? That means maybe you don't replace the windows, or maybe you don't replace that shaggy green carpet that you got in the living room. Those are the types of things that maybe somebody else can do. You decrease your property a little bit, let those folks that are interested in a property feel like they're getting a deal. You move the product, everybody's happy. You create a win-win situation. It's always creating win-win. Nobody, think about this, Richard. Nobody has ever bought anything not thinking that they've got a deal. Yeah. Everybody. That's when right. You go run out and buy a vehicle, you feel you got a deal. Yeah. Now I could bring you evidence that shows you otherwise, but nevertheless, you feel in your heart that you got yourself a deal. Everybody wants to feel that. And so that is one of the things that I advocate to people. But the biggest difference that I see in professionally run renovations, and that's on the commercial side, whether it's over your neck of the woods or ours, it's associated with commercial renovations and how they're carried out. Where you have architects, engineers, interior designers, all that kind of stuff, all those types of professionals that are putting together a plan for a renovation, they create it in a document called a scope of work. So in that scope of work is you have the specifications of the appliances, the color of the paint, the type of windows, whatever it is that you want to get accomplished within that particular renovation, that is included in a document. And I don't find that on the residential side. And I'm a strong advocate that if you are the one that's going to plan and manage your own renovation, that you need to create this document that's got pictures, drawings, and it is clearly identified everything you want to be able to accomplish within that property. Yeah. So that when you go give it out to an electrician, a plumber, a painter, any tradesperson that's going to quote on it, they're quoting apples to apples when you get all those quote back. If you don't have that document, you don't have some type of a basis for people to quote, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with a lot of soupy stuff all over the place. One guy's giving you this much, this guy's giving you that much. And how do you, as an investor, get the best value? I'm always about getting value. So this is one of the things that I help people in creating, there's a lot of other things, and how to identify, contractors or the tradespeople that you should be hiring and not hiring, things of that nature. But one of the biggest pillars of being planning and managing a successful renovation is this document called the scope of work. I'm a huge proponent of it because based on my experiences out in the commercial side, how everything is, beautiful and run perfectly. And then on the reno side, how many times do you drive by particular homes that seems like they're endlessly working on, and they got a garbage bin dumpster thing in front of the property for months, and I look at 6 months have passed and it's still sitting there, and I'm scratching my head. Heck, I can build a brand new house in 3 or 4 months, and these people 6 months later and they're still working on it. You know what I mean?
So true. So true. Yeah, that is, it's a great tip. Yeah, the scope of works is so key because it's something, as you say, it removes the vagueness. It brings clarity. You're getting apples for apples, as you've touched upon. You're getting the proper numbers. And it's also giving you mentioned earlier, not working in the business, working on the business. You're able to step back from the project and think, wait a minute, no, I don't think we need to spend that there, or we shouldn't be throwing money here because we're not going to get it back. This is that, right? Remove that. You can see things much more clearly and then stay on top of them.
It is amazing what the document will do. And not only does it keep your tradespeople, contractors, whatever you want to call them, in line.
Yeah.
But guess what, Richard? It keeps you, the investor, in line as well, because it's very easy to start splurging a couple of $100 here, a couple of $1,000 there. You have a set budget, and all of a sudden, because you don't have a document that you're beholden to, all of a sudden you add these certain things, and they add up. Yeah. And they add up in time, they add up in money, and then all of a sudden you look back and say, "Whoa, what happened over here? We had a budget of 50,000, and all of a sudden now it's 70,000." It's very easy to do. Yeah. So that's why the scope of work is so important, in that it is crafted so well that it keeps everybody in line, including the principal as well as all these tradespeople. And you just follow it along. And then once it's a recipe. It's like sitting down and baking a cake. How can you bake a cake without a recipe? Yeah. And in that recipe, if you follow the directions of the recipe, it'll give you a conclusion, a beautiful cake. And that's what I am an advocate for, a strong advocate for. And it doesn't seem like anybody out there is pushing it or teaching people how to do this. A lot of this, you watch these TV shows and there's channels dedicated to renovation.
Yeah.
HGTV and all this other stuff, mumbo jumbo stuff. And you watch these shows in 30 minutes, they're able to take this ugly duckling and turn it into a beautiful property. And none of them actually goes through the process of showing you how to plan it, how to manage it. You got a bunch of these DIY people, do it yourself. No, I'd never recommend anybody do anything like that. I have scars all over my body of 30 years of working that, trust me, you don't want to do demos. You don't want to, there's a reason why I'm an ugly duckling, is because of all these things that I've done in my life. So I don't encourage anybody to grab a hammer, start banging away. I've walked into so many houses where people have started doing their own work, and the house is teetering from falling apart because they knocked out the wrong wall. Or they do things to the property where they shouldn't be doing, because ultimately at the end of the day, as property investors, we're looking to make money. It's all about making money. So if you decide that you're going to knock out windows that, the only explanation is they're 40 years old. That's okay if they're 40 years old. As long as there's not a gaping hole, through a broken window, they're fine. We just clean them up because we're in the business of making money. So you clean them up and away you go. Either you rent it out or you flip it or whatever your intentions are. But oftentimes these newbies, these new real estate investors they create these wonderful lists of thousands of dollars of work when it isn't necessary. Because our goals, we got to establish what our goals are.
Yeah.
And then create the actions in order to reach that goal.
Love it. I love it. Fantastic. So many wee tips and tricks and nuggets here from your experience. It's fantastic. I could drag more of these out of you for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time because you've given so much value. I really appreciate it. I'm just wondering about the future because, here you are, you've done so much, you've achieved so much. You're semi-retired, enjoying that, helping people, training people, etc. What's the future? What's Van's future that lies ahead?
I don't know what it is, but I tell you, I truly enjoy this interaction I have with you, and I do many podcasts. People want to hear a different perspective on real estate and property investing. I really enjoy enjoying life. I enjoy helping people. So I engage people in walking them through the planning and management of their renovation. I enjoy that. I also enjoy helping people structure their first forays into property investing. I also have individuals that have already accumulated a property and hit a wall like I hit a wall many years ago and don't know how to scale up from there. So I really enjoy the sharing of information. I'm passionate about it. I don't find it being work. I really enjoy it. I don't have to do it, but I just really enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people like yourself, professionals in the industry, and an exchange of information. I learn just as much about you and what's going on as much, and hopefully you've learned something from me. So that's what I see in the future, and we'll see how things go. So far, so good.
Oh, absolutely. So far, so good. You're doing incredibly well. That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'm quite sure, listeners, viewers, that you've enjoyed this today. Remember and reach out to the man, connect with him. Here he is, involved in this mumbo jumbo, as he calls it, with the property investing. He's no ugly duckling. He's a beautiful swan. Thank you very much, Van Sturgeon.
Thank you very much for having me, Richard. You have yourself a wonderful day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. Remember, with the guests that you just saw, go into the show notes for the page because all of their links are there so that you can get in touch and to get more information. And talking about getting more information, more guests, more insights, more knowledge, etc., make sure you're subscribed. Get the subscription done, get the notifications on, and then we'll always keep in touch with you every single time a brand new show is going to come out. So thanks for tuning to This Week in Property.